Thank you so much. Can you all hear me? Because you have to deal with my accent as well as the mics. So you've heard some wonderful speakers today, all about how to make this a better world. So when I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about, I thought that I wanted to talk about what is the role of the media in creating this better world. And in a way, one of the questions is a kind of perfect segue to what I want to talk about. And if somebody can give me a kind of 2-minute warning after 10 minutes so that we can maybe take more than 2 questions, since I come from the interactive media. And there are a lot of people here who have a lot of ideas and are working in different arenas, so I would love to hear from you. So if somebody can give me a 2-minute warning when I hit 10 minutes. Perfect. Then we can have a little more time for questions. So I just actually finished a book in which I spent the first 2 chapters dealing with the role of the media. And just to give you an idea of where I'm coming from. And the book is called Right is Wrong, and the first chapter is called Equal Time for Lies. And what I mean by that is that there is a tendency in the media to present all sides of the story and consider this the end of their job. This is supposed to be being neutral, objective, a good journalist. And I have an 18-year-old daughter who was the editor of a school paper, and one day she wrote a paper in which she was asked to define the mission of journalism. And she wrote things like the mission of journalism is to ferret out the truth. And she wrote about journalism in a way that reminded me of what journalism at its best is supposed to be about, which is about the truth. It's not about just presenting different viewpoints. It's about doing your best to find out where the truth lies. Otherwise, we have what I'm calling the Pontius Pilate media. You know, you wash your hands off and you say, okay, you sort it out. And that has meant that we have had endless debates on television and in newspapers and on the internet about issues, let's say, like global warming, where it would have, on the one hand, let's say, Al Gore discussing the dangers of global warming, and on the other hand, Senator James Inhofe discussing why global warming is a fraud. And that was supposed to be a valid debate. And somehow, if you split the difference between these 2 positions, maybe you would find the truth. But the truth is not often to be found by splitting the difference. The truth is very often unequivocally on one side or the other. And we've seen that with global warming as a great example, where we've wasted an enormous amount of time debating global warming instead of debating what to do about global warming. Because we would have people who had real expertise and knowledge about the science against people who are in the pay of Exxon. You're always going to find somebody to argue for everything. But there comes to be a point when we stop debating whether the earth is flat, right? I mean, maybe there are still some people who think it is flat, but you are not going to give them a lot of time listening to their view. I'm sure you can find them, though. And for a very, very long time, you'll be able to find people who think global warming doesn't exist. The lead up to the war in Iraq was a great example of what I'm describing. So many in the media saw their job as presenting all sides to the story, with, of course, particular emphasis being given to the anonymous sources from within the administration, because that was the conventional wisdom. And that's another problem of this approach to reality. Conventional wisdom is often wrong. And it's often expressed by incredibly smart people on television. And they say things like, Iraq is a mixed bag. Have you heard that again and again? You know, people coming back from Iraq or never going to Iraq and debating what's happening in Iraq and using the phrase, it's a mixed bag. Well, Iraq is a mixed bag only in the sense that if you go to your doctor and he says to you, there's good news and bad news. The good news is that your acne has cleared. And the bad news is that you have a brain tumor. And then you go home and you say, that was a mixed bag of a diagnosis. So Iraq is a disaster. The fact that there's been a reduction in violence is really beside the point compared to what a tragic foreign policy mistake Iraq has been for this country and for our safety. And every day we forget that, we're getting deeper into this tragic mistake. I don't know if you have followed the latest news about the Iraqi military targeting the leaders of the awakening. The awakening, remember, the awakening was what enabled the reduction in violence. The surge came after the awakening, Senator McCain, despite the fact that he tried to mix that up in his interview on CBS. And the point is that what was supposed to be this great news about Iraq has suddenly shifted, and we're now attacking the very people who gave us and brought us the good news. So in this world, where there are hatreds of 1,000 years old, we have a media that is dealing with the latest escalation or reduction in violence, completely missing the big picture. We have a candidate on the Republican side who doesn't even know the difference between Sunnis and Shias. And yet the media are letting him get away with it. Not only that, the American people still think that he has a national security advantage, that he's going to keep us safer. And part of that is that the media have not really given enough attention and time and emphasis on how wrong he has been again and again on national security issues like Iraq. So, moving away from presenting all sides to a story and moving towards ferreting out the truth is, I feel, the great contribution of the new media. And I actually believe that this all debate between new media and old media is in many ways obsolete. And yesterday the Huffington Post hosted a debate on the subject that was moderated by Charlie Rose with representatives of the new media, including Chad Hurley, who created YouTube, and will.i.am, who had this big success with Yes We Can, the remix of the song. And also representatives of old media, like George Stephanopoulos and the publisher of the Washington Post. And what we all discovered is that there is only new media in terms of the future. The question is, how will the old media incorporate it, and how will the new media incorporate the best of traditional journalism, fact-checking, accuracy, fairness? So if we look at this brave new world of new media, it's imperative to me to address issues in this new way, where we actually present the facts, and where facts are sacred, and facts sometimes are on one side or the other. And that doesn't mean that you are partisan and you are not objective. I think actually this whole way of looking at American politics as right versus left is also obsolete. At the Huffington Post, on our own political team, we don't use these terms anymore. First of all, if you see the world as right versus left, then somehow psychologically you are geared to think that the sane place to be is in the middle, right? And yet what has happened in American politics is that what used to be left-wing positions are now solidly mainstream. You know, positions like doing something about global warming, or corporate responsibility, or bringing the troops home, or some form of universal health care. All these are now believed by 60 to 70% of the American people. And yet we still have not redefined the center, and we still have not educated the American people to know that they're really all holding, in large majorities, these progressive views. So, as we are looking at the new media, it is to me imperative that we look at all the ways in which we can have a debate that is sustained around where the truth lies. And sustained is the key, and I want to end with that. The old media, in a way, suffer from attention deficit disorder. They break stories, and then they often abandon stories on the front pages of the New York Times. Remember the Pentagon military analyst story? It was broken by the New York Times, but then it was pursued by the blogosphere until something happened and a congressional investigation was started. Because we in the blogosphere suffer from a different disease, which is obsessive-compulsive disorder. So you have ADD and OCD, and maybe the two together will be great, but without OCD, nothing really happens because there's so much information, there's so much opinion, that the way to break through the static is to really stay with the story again and again and again. So I'm excited about the new media. I feel it really is going to make it much easier to achieve a lot of the goals that were presented here today. But it will take all of our help, because the key of the new media, of course, is bringing in new communities, being interactive, and giving a voice to many people who otherwise would not have one. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And we do have time for some questions. Yes. Oh. Please identify yourself also.
Sure. Andrew Richet from Tech President. Hello, Arianna. How are you?
You are not supposed to be here.
I changed my mind. I heard you were speaking, so I flew out. You know, I signed up for that text message that everybody else signed up for, announcing Joe Biden as the VP. And when I finally got it, what surprised me was not that Joe Biden was the selection. What surprised me was at the very end, there was an invitation to watch their joint appearance together, not on CNN, not on ABC, not on PBS, but on BarackObama.com. And so, as we are watching media and politics and technology all merge, and since you are all very often one of the esteemed pundits that our nation's networks put on to talk about politics, I'm just wondering what your observations are about how much of a disservice the networks are currently doing to our democracy by putting these absolutely inane talking heads repeating the same fake drama perspectives that, you know, basically indicate not so much about what's going on politically, but about how scared they are about this new media environment.
Well, first of all, you know, Andrew and Tech President are doing some remarkable work in tracking, you know, how politics and this new media, politics and technology are interacting. And the texting that he mentioned is a real example of this intersection. It didn't quite work the way the Obama campaign planned, because by the time we got the 3 a.m. text, we all knew from CNN that Joe Biden was going to be the VP choice, but nevertheless enabled the Obama campaign to collect hundreds of thousands of email addresses. 3 million. Oh, 3 million, perfect. 3 million cell phone numbers, right? Which they have, I put myself on that list, and I've already gotten dozens of other texts from them. So the communication is extensive. On the point of the talking heads, you know, I really couldn't agree more. I think that this whole discussion has been so much about process and about the very exciting, real conflict that still exists within the Democratic Party between the Clinton forces and the Obama forces. I don't think this is entirely resolved, but the way it has dominated coverage is certainly disproportionate to all the major issues that this campaign is about. But it's easy, you know, it's process, it's fun, it's like college football. It's not like people's lives are at stake. And that's a major problem. And I don't think it's just because they're feeling threatened, because I don't think it was much better when they were not feeling threatened. I think it's just because they know how to do this. It's easy to do, and something else is much harder to do.
Yes, over on the left side, someone? The gentleman right there.
Hi, my name's Ryan Loney. I'm a student at UC Davis in California, and I'm 20 years old. I'm young. I use the new media for my source of information and where I get my knowledge on issues. But a huge challenge that we face, and I think you touched on it a little bit with the global warming debate and how people don't accept it. And there's a lot of people that I think don't accept it because they don't want to face the challenge. They take comfort in the lies. They take comfort in not having to change their lifestyle. And they don't want to accept the truth. They want to continue to watch Fox News and hear lies because they take comfort in that. How do we bring those people into the new media and let them hear the truth so we can face the issues and address the issues?
Well, that's a very good question. It also is a question that campaigns are facing in deciding their strategy. And I feel very strongly that instead of trying to move people away from watching Fox, or instead of trying to move voters away from sitting on the fence, I would like to target the people who've given up. I would like to target the 83 million eligible voters, for example, who did not vote in 2004. For me, that is a much better strategy. Right now, campaigns tend to go for the swing voters, the undecideds. They're the most volatile of voters. 43% of them in 2004 believed the swift voting of John Kerry, right down to believing that John Kerry had inflicted his own wounds to get a Bronze Star. Now, do you really want to base your campaign on trying to convince these people to vote for you? Does the Obama campaign really want to base its strategy on trying to convince people that Barack Obama is not Muslim? Because, if they still believe he's Muslim, after Reverend Wright, after he has said endlessly that he's not Muslim, then you're never really going to convince them unequivocally. Because something may happen the day before the election that convinces them again that he's Muslim. While the 83 million Americans, many of them young, many of them your age, many of them my children's age, are those who've given up. They just think politics doesn't change anything. And can you blame them? I mean, how many universal health care plans have been presented by endless politicians at the national and the regional level? So, for young people and older people who have given up on politics is rational. There's a rational element to it. We have to convince them that this is going to be different. And I don't know if you've seen Kevin Costner's movie Swing Vote. But in it, Kevin Costner is one of those voters who's given up. And he then gives a speech about why he's now going to vote. And okay, you may think it's kind of hawky and everything, but I found it very moving. And not just because I played myself as a television commentator. But it's just really moving to see that that can happen. And that, for me, is the same also with how, what kind of group do we target when we present the news and when we present opinion. Let's just, first of all, target everybody. At the Huffington Post, we deliberately do not just speak to the converted. We deliberately have launched multiple new sections that are about entertainment, media, living, style, green, in order to attract users who don't necessarily share our politics, but then discover our politics. I never in my whole life, wanted to just talk to people who agree with me. So, in fact, right now, half the traffic at the Huffington Post does not come from politics. It comes from all the other sections. And that's very exciting to me, because these people are those that we particularly want to talk to. We want to talk to all of you in the room, too, of course, who tend to agree with us. But we need to expand that universe. And one other thing, if you're interested in covering politics, we've launched a citizen journalism project that we are calling Off the Bus. And it now has over 10,000 contributors around the country. And we love what's coming back from people who are covering politics differently instead of covering it from being on the bus, which is the point that Andrew was making, the conventional wisdom being mouthed again and again.
Okay, another question? Okay, all right. Well, thank you very much, Arianna.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.